Welcome back, everybody. It's the latest edition of your Geek Culture 411. It's Skip and Tosh. It's the D-Man. It's geek-span, baby. We got great content for you today. We got some superhero movies. We got some potential reboots. We got television news. We got comic news. How you doing, Skip?
Man, I'm doing good, man. I'm a little scared, to be honest with you, and I'll talk about my horror and my terror and my dread because that's actually the very first thing that we're gonna jump in today. So let's jump into it. Breaking news from the MCU today or yesterday: Doctor Strange director Scott Derrickson is exiting the planned sequel, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, over creative differences. Big deal or little deal, Wes?
This is an enormous deal. This is terrible news. So, I think we've all noticed that the MCU, as time has gone by, has become more milk toast, kind of watered down. Doctor Strange, really, in that Phase 3, is one of the few movies that had its own flavor, its own flair. It looked and felt different than all the other MCU movies. It still had the stupid toddler humor, but everything else about it was really unique and different. And I guess, Kevin Feige wants to feed us the same bowl of plain oatmeal to where nothing will stand out. It'll all just be something everyone can eat, but maybe not everyone will ever enjoy. This is terrible news. I couldn't be more disappointed. Doctor Strange wasn't my favorite movie, but it felt so different. It was, a bright ray of sunshine in the kind of a mundane night sky of the MCU right now, and it's terrible news. I wouldn't say I'm devastated, but I'm very disappointed.
Yeah, man, I've been plunged into a universe of sadness. This is terrible news, man. This is really, really, really bad. About as bad as the joke that I just told, my last pun. Is I used to be a really big fan of horror movies when I was younger. I think from like the age of like 8 to 12, I just like every single Freddy Krueger movie, every single Halloween, every single Friday the 13th. Like I said, Nightmare on Elm Street. I mean, I got into B movies, I got into gore. I Brain Scan, which is always going to be one of my favorite horror movies because it's about video games and it's Edward Furlong and it's very 90s and just like all of that stuff. I just burned through all of it. So I used to be really big into horror, and then I completely fell out of horror. Maybe I don't know. Well, like I said, I got burnt out. So around the time I was 13, and I kind of never really went back. But I do enjoy elements, and I have gone and seen horror movies in this modern day, like on dates and stuff. Bleh. So I was actually excited, like, because one of Scott Derrickson's films, I'm trying to remember which one, but was one that I actually like enjoyed. It kind of saved the horrible date, the scary date that I was on. So he did Doctor Strange, and I enjoy, like, I already like Doctor Strange as a character. The way that they took Brian K. Vaughan's The Oath and like merged it into the movie was awesome, and I felt like he did a really really good job, and I feel like he earned Feige letting go of the reins a little bit and introducing more of that horror into the movie. Now, I was of no like delusions. I knew it wasn't going to be a Marvel horror movie. It's not going to be. I knew it wasn't going to be anything close to what we had all thought that New Mutants was or is still going to be, but to have a little bit more of that genre, a little bit more of those elements in there, especially as you're introducing something as scary and unsure as the multiverse, I thought was perfect and spot on. And I thought if there was any director that would be a sure shot that I was really looking forward to coming back the second time, even more than Ryan Coogler and Black Panther, it was actually Scott Derrickson. So to hear this, like right before they're getting ready to start shooting in the next few months, and that they got to plug another director in and try, either A, try to follow Scott Derrickson's stuff as closely as possible since he's still going to be an executive producer on it, or B, have him or her, whoever, change it enough to where it's going to be kind of close, but not exactly the same thing. It's horrible. I'm viewing this almost as similar to the disappointment of when Edgar Wright left the project for Ant Man. Ant Man was gonna, and Ant Man, people a lot liked it, and I didn't hate it, but it's at the bottom of the MCU movies for me. And I know Edgar Wright, with his stylization of things, was gonna make it way cooler than what it ended up being. So now, yeah, man, this is very disappointing, and I am terrified of what we might end up getting in the face of this all.
I believe you're talking about either Sinister or the Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Actually both, because I've seen both. But the Exorcist of Emily Rose was the one that I saw on the date, and then Sinister I'd seen at home by myself. Both of them were entertaining, man.
There you go. All right, Skip. James Tynion takes the reins to Batman this week. His first order of business is having Batman vow to honor Alfred's death by creating a better, safer Gotham. Is this how you make Alfred's death meaningful?
I I can't think of I don't want to say a better way, but I can't think of a more organic way than the way that James T has chosen. To be honest with you, I was this close. I was this close to putting Batman '86 on the pull list for my comic shop sponsor as something to review, and I just couldn't pull the trigger because one issue away still just has a little bit too much Tom King aroma, if you will, on it. But if you know, it kind of goes back to like a story that I was telling you that I ended up accidentally pitching that I'm gonna now intentionally pitch to someone that we've been talking about on the channel. If the city is a character, if Gotham itself is a character, in a sense, Gotham itself is a victim of what's going on inside of its city. If that's what it is, and it's that important to Batman, and Alfred was that important to Bruce Wayne and Batman, I think it's a very, like I said, not the best, not maybe the most creative, but the most organic way that I think Alfred can be honored in the series since he's no longer in it. But Wes, what do you think about the approach?
I think it's excellent. I reviewed the comic. It's got it's good. It's high points. It's low points. But I think the way that James Tynion handled the death of Alfred was just phenomenal. It's something that did not sit well with me during Tom King's run. It didn't feel like he honored the character or even realized that it would be meaningful to readers. So it was nice for James Tynion. He's going back. He's rectifying something that wasn't done right the first time. And I think that Alfred telling Bruce that, build that city that you see, that Gotham that you see in your dreams, that won't need a Batman, and let's do that together. He lost Alfred. Now he's going to go back and do it because I think he knows in his heart Alfred always wanted a Gotham that didn't need Batman. Will he be successful? Probably not in the comic series, but it's a wonderful thought and it's a great direction for the comic series.
I fully agree. I fully agree. Good point. Well, flipping over to some DC-ish news still. The CW is renewing the entire Arrowverse. Batwoman, Black Lightning, Legends of Tomorrow, and The Flash all return. Arrowverse itself wrapped up, or Arrow itself wrapped up its plans in its final season, but new series Green Arrow and the Canaries and Superman and Lois fill the void. You surprised CW renewed all the DC comic shows, Wes?
Well, they don't all have good ratings right now, and some of them have been kind of not critical successes, and certainly not successes in the eyes of the customers, who are the most important people. But I know that AT&T has a stated purpose to roll out in a very big streaming service to compete with Netflix, to compete with Disney Plus, to compete with Amazon, and you need content. And one of the big contents, some of the contents that's the most popular is superhero related content. So no, I'm not surprised that they decided to keep the CW around. Even if it isn't good, you can have it on that platform, and it's something people will consume, and it's a reason to bring readers back. There are diehard DC fans that are going to want to go in there and consume all that stuff and have it available. So do I think it was renewed based on merit and quality? No, but I do think it was renewed based on an overall need for more content that fills that gap, that fills that superhero space for the planned AT&T streaming service. And that's my take on that.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, that's kind of the safety net right now is that like you said, there's so many streaming platforms that just need content and comic book content. And if we're looking at the vital food groups or the vital content groups of a young strapping streaming platform, then either whether it be indie or mainstream comic content is something that kind of needs to be on there. If you can afford to get the mainstream stuff, then that's what most streaming platforms probably looking for. And then if it's the indie stuff, if you can't afford that, then you go with the indie stuff like a Stumptown or a Deadly Class and different things like that. So, you know, I'm not so. I mean, if I'm surprised at anything, it's Batwoman, but I think since all the other shows, and I don't want to say they were so healthy, but since there was a history of health, and then there is still enough interest around it, I think they're like, let's give it one more season and see if we can turn it around. But it's still Berlanti's group that's producing all of them, so they got enough money in the bank to kind of stall it out for one more season and see if it can become anything. So it doesn't fully surprise me either. I'm still just so disappointed with how strong the Arrowverse and these shows started out, and then just how much they've dwindled. And the only good thing that has come out of it is that they were like, "Oh, crossover events work," so they make sure to give us one. And when they do the crossover events, at least they go enough into the lore and be even like past the lore. They go enough into the fandom, getting Kevin Conroy and and all these different people and James Wesley Shipp and all these dudes that have previously been in the shows. They really go into the fandom. They know that we go to these conventions and stuff and go to the panels where all these people are speaking. They pull them in, and at least they get us talking about it, and they get us watching the crossover events, and then they just watch us all fall off and trail off for the rest of the season. So not a big surprise to me.
It's long been believed that Paramount's next Star Trek film will be the fourth in J.J. Abrams' Kelvin timeline. In a recent interview, new director Noah Hawley indicates it may in fact be another reboot of the franchise. Right time for a Star Trek reboot, or too soon?
Man, with the cycle of things now, I don't think it's too soon because cycle keeps going and going and going, and it keeps getting smaller and smaller. Um, and maybe I'm being a little biased because of what has happened with my beloved Star Wars so much. I've only known bits and pieces of Star Wars growing up, like watching the really old movies, and then growing up watching the show with Picard on it and everything, and being a little too young for the kind of some of the higher concepts that they were speaking on, but just enjoying the technology and stuff. I'm starting. I have a desire now to get into Star Trek and find out what makes people love it so much and kind of some of the concepts. So maybe I'm a little biased, but I'm ready. And the other part is that J.J. Abrams had his dirty paws on the other ones and only made them, visually and stylistically look good. The contents of the actual movie was so at best. So I'm ready for someone else to have a crack at it. Maybe someone who, like I said, will get more into the depths of why people enjoy Star Trek, why people become Trekkies. And if they can pull that part out while just take some of what JJ did, make it look good, but fill it with a very interesting story. Fill it with even better and more accurate characterizations. You can modernize the story. You don't need to modernize the characteristics of the and the essence of the character so much. And if that can be done, then I think it would be something that people would welcome, especially the Trekkies and the more hardcore Star Trek fans. What do you think, Wes?
I think it's a little bit too soon. One of the things that they did get right, in J.J. Abrams' reboot, was the casting. Chris Pine is a terrific choice for Captain Kirk. Zachary Quinto plays a damn good Spock. Bones, the guy that got it for Bones is great. Simon Pegg's Scotty. They got a great cast in there. They really did a wonderful job. Forgetting the I forgetting the lady that plays the other deck officer, but they did a great job casting it. Now they're gonna have to cast it again. You have to get used to new people in these iconic roles. Uh, I think it's too soon. I don't know who Noah Hawley is. I don't think he's got enough clout to be needing to reboot the entire franchise. And J.J. Abrams, for what he did reboot it well. The concept and the idea and the way he executed the reboot itself actually makes sense. It works within the framework of the science that's used in Star Trek. Now, were the stories great? The first one was okay. I didn't like the second one. The Khan story kind of sucked, but the third one's actually pretty good. So it's too soon for me. I don't see Star Trek ever being a huge worldwide phenomenon anyway. So if they're doing it because they didn't get the right box office, I don't see that happening for that franchise. I don't see it being that. So nah, I'm not happy with that. They shouldn't do it.
Makes sense. Oh, and shout out to the comics, by the way, that at least about 6 months ago have been pretty solid. All right. So, indie writer Blake Northcott recently revealed she's working on an upcoming Catwoman story. Murphyverse architect Sean Gordon Murphy is providing covers for the series. Good move by DC Comics, Wes.
This is a great move. You're always talking about you want a more diverse array of creators. Want female authors. Blake Northcott is a great comic writer. If you go in and you go to her Aspen Comics executive assistant Iris series, that's one of the coolest kind of James Bond type stories that you're ever going to read. The excellent characterization. She's great, at action based stories. She's phenomenal comic writer. Plus, she is amazing with customers. You see her on social media, and you see her interact with people. She's always funny. If you want to say something rude or mean to her, she's got a nice comeback. It's never mean, but it's always funny. It leaves her in a good light. This is a great move. DC needs some fresh new blood. Blake Northcott is a terrific addition to the roster. Sean Gordon Murphy doing some Catwoman covers. Who's going to say no to that anyway? That dude is a killer artist. His Batman animated series Catwoman is a great addition to any cover. So yeah, I couldn't be more excited. This is great. Love Blake Northcott.
Right on. I myself, I'm not very familiar with Blake Northcott at all. Totally down to check out some stuff, especially if it comes highly recommended by my man Wes. But as far as Catwoman, the character itself, and then you take Sean Gordon Murphy, at least the world that he's constructed, the Murphyverse. I'm down, and it's crazy because as you're talking, I'm thinking actually when I was reading that article, I was
I don't
thinking,
believe this is going to be in the Murphyverse.
okay, he's just doing
covers, but she's
Okay.
doing a Catwoman story that's outside of that. This is the way
That's
I
outside of
understand
it. Okay, fair enough. Well, then maybe that changes how I feel about it a little bit because I haven't been a big fan of what I've heard and seen from the current Catwoman series, and I know some of it is mixed. But any of the reviews and any times I picked it up and flipped through it, I wasn't the biggest fan of it. But it did still make me remember how much I did enjoy Catwoman before before Tom King turned her into to Batman's mommy wife. So,
Joelle Jones was really hamstrung by Tom King on that one. She is a terrific artist on her own right. She was writing the series. They launched that Catwoman series in conjunction with Batman 50, the wedding disaster, the wedding that didn't happen.
yeah,
And I think a lot of people that were ready to jump on board that series walked right past that comic, or if they had it in their pull box, they said, you can take this back because I didn't get what I was expecting. And I think they might have poisoned the water on Joelle Jones' series there. So I do feel bad for her, but I do think this is a better direction. It's nice to get some new blood, something that's not associated with that epic disaster that was Batman 50.
I agree. And with all that said, I'm actually going to give this one a shot. So I'm looking forward to number one. And before then, I'll try to grab one of the other books that you were talking about, Wes, and check those out.
You will not be disappointed, my friend. Netflix released the full trailer for Lock and Key based on Joe Hill's hit horror series from IDW. The Lock and Key trailer hit. Did the hot Lock and Key trailer hit your feel spot, Skip?
It was okay to me. I had tried to get into the Lock and Key comic, maybe 8 months back. Someone had introduced it to me because I was like, okay, I'm getting into these. Well, I'd been into indie comics a little bit for a while, but I was mostly on East of West and Deadly Class, Tokyo Ghost. I was basically only splitting my time between what wow, how am I forgetting his name? Jonathan Hickman. I was splitting my time between Jonathan Hickman stuff and some Edward Baker stuff, and then a lot of I'm forgetting the other dude's name, Rick Remender stuff. So I wasn't really going too much outside of that because everything else I read was kind of like blah. So I was like, oh, Lock and Key, people are talking about it again. I'm not like the biggest into horror, but I'll give it a shot because I did read some of Witches by Scott Snyder. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. And I just wasn't digging it. And then when I checked this out, it didn't really hit me either. And maybe another thing is I've never been a reader of Stephen King, and I know that the writer is like Stephen King's son. So
Mhm.
none of the connections, nothing about it like hits me. But here's the thing: I have to be honest. There's been trailers that I didn't like, and then once the show comes out and more of the story's been told, and especially since it's adapted from the comics to the screen, it could be something that I may enjoy sitting there and watching. So I'm still going to give the show a shot, but as of right now, it's not on my radar. But Wes, did it do anything for you?
So I have not read Lock and Key. I've got my good friend Jeremy. He's been suggesting it to me. Lance has been suggesting, you got to read Lock and Key. I'll be honest, my read pile right now is about 130 comics deep, and I am struggling to get through it because I got to read so many comics for the channel on a weekly basis. I was excited to see the trailer, and the first thing that stands out, the visuals are good, the production is solid, but then everything kind of after that doesn't feel quite as good. The music didn't really set the right tone. It felt like it was Christmas music. I was like, is this a Christmas show? So that didn't really make sense to me. It doesn't look like they went out there and got the best actors for it. They weren't really selling it to me. Of course, it is just a trailer. It is a small snippet of a larger, more larger story. More performances. So it could be much better. But I don't think this was the trailer that they probably wanted to put out, or maybe the impression that they wanted to put out with the trailer. This is a really, really, really important series for IDW. They have lost tens of millions of dollars trying to take the few IPs that they actually own and get them into a Netflix in this case. October Faction is going to be coming out, and they have lost their asses on this, and they are basically on the verge of insolvency. If this doesn't hit, if they don't have any of these hit, like I believe the other one is, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm forgetting the name. It's the female Western.
Yeah. Looking it up, researching now.
I can't remember the name, but if these don't hit, they're probably going to end up having to fold and sell off in pieces or go bankrupt and just dissolve altogether. So this doesn't feel like it's going to be a hit. I'll tell you that, because the trailer just isn't all that inspiring. Hopefully it's really good. I don't want to see IDW go down in flames, but if their hopes and dreams are riding on Lock and Key, the Netflix series, it's not the impression that they wanted, in my opinion.
Was it V Wars or was it Wyona Earp?
Winona Earp.
Okay,
There we go.
okay. Yeah. Yeah. Good luck to him. I mean, I like you the signature series, which I miss so much, and it's making a return, as well as some of the just comic book industry, from the indies to all those different news videos that you put up, has kind of been chronicling this. So if anybody's curious about what's been going on with IDW and kind of how they got to this point, where if these two shows don't fall through, expect them to probably be bought out and then dissolved, or just straight dissolved. Go back and watch those videos, and it chronicles how they got to this point. It's pretty sad.
Mm-hmm. It is sad. So that should do it for today's Geek Span. Got a lot of great industry news for you. Thank you very much for joining us. Skip, do you have anything to say to the viewers?
Thank you guys for tuning in. Of course, if you're looking for a gaming chair, office desk chair, please consider Tabu Ohana. Proceeds go to helping orphans out in Thailand. You can hit me up on social media at Skip and Tosh, or you can check the link in the video description if you want more info. Make sure you're joining the Discord. We're in there. I'll be in there more next week. I've just been like really busy since the new year started, but I'll be in there sharing more of the things that I'm reading, some ideas that I have that I'm writing, and just sharing like different panels and stuff like that. That's really fun. And also, if you guys, if you want to help support the channel, we have a coffee. Go check it out. The link's in there. It talks about all that stuff. And lastly, Wes, is there anything else?
That'll do it. Like I said, I am going on a trip next week. There will be no geek-span. There will be no Outside the Bleed. There will still be content. I'm recording it right now. Hopefully, it'll all be produced on time. Maybe there'll be 2 videos a day. Don't think there will be, but there will be great stuff waiting for you. Thank you all very much.